We'll come back to Blake Shelton, but right now we want to welcome to the program. She's got so many accolades to her credit here. An actress, she's an author, she's a substance abuse counselor, and Mackenzie Phillips, welcome to the program. Good morning.
Thank you so much, Rollin. Good morning.
And whereabouts in the world are you this morning? Are you West Coast or East Coast?
I'm at my home in California, and I'm sitting here with my little pug dog, Rudy, who's sleeping on my lap. It's the cutest thing in the world, this little dude.
Yeah, we should say good morning then to Rudy, too. Well, it's a pleasure to have you here because, you and I are about the same age, and so I've grown up with watching things that you have done in your life, from American Graffiti to, One Day at a Time. Also have been aware of the challenges from your confessions and books and stuff that you've had out there of really a challenging life, and all that's come together to put you where you are today. You're an addict, recovered, I would say. Is that how you label yourself, as recovered addict, or are you ongoing recovering addict?
I'm in recovery.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also now a substance abuse counselor, and you've got another book out. Is this your second or third book that you have out?
Second. It's my second book.
Okay. Hopeful Healing, Essays on Managing, Recovering, and Surviving Addiction. Your addiction, where did this start in your life as you look back? Where do you think you first got started in the drug world and everything else?
Well, I mean, I come from a long line of addicts and alcoholics, so I was genetically predisposed to addiction before I even, picked up a joint or a drink or whatever, and so my father was definitely a hardcore addict, and a lot of the people around him were addicts, and my mom was an alcoholic, and so I was around all of this growing up. I mean, it was modeled right in front of me, and and certainly don't blame them. They did the best that they could, I suppose. But when you're genetically predisposed to addiction and you pick up a drug or a drink and you start experimenting, the monster, the sleeping monster that's inside of you, wakes up and wants more, and so that's I was very young when I first started experimenting with drugs, and over time became addicted and dependent, I suppose you could say.
And we should point out, for those that aren't aware, you're the daughter of John Phillips, who was lead singer of the Mamas and the Papas. And so, in a rock and roll world of the 60s and into the 70s, I mean, that was kind of the norm for that particular world. And you say genetics. Do you say addiction is a genetic, or is it more of a, environmental issue?
Well, both components come into play. It can be environmental, or it can be genetic predisposition. It has to do with both a lot of different factors, but certainly those both come into play.
Mm-hmm. Your book now, Hopeful Healing. Tell us what is in this, and explain for the person that's going to pick it up. Is it going to be good reading for somebody that's not an addict, but maybe curious about what the world's all about?
Absolutely. I mean, I've had reviews of the book and also, interviews about the book with people who say, I'm not an addict. I don't have any addicts in my family. I loved the book. It gave me some pretty practical wisdom about day-to-day life, about shame and guilt and trust, these things that we all struggle with, identity and trauma and all these different things. It's a great read in that it's a conversational approach to this. It's not a clinical or shaming type of way, or it's a very relatable book of essays on life and doing well in life.
You were fired back when you were on One Day at a Time because of your addiction. Was that the first time that you started to get clean?
I was fired twice from One Day at a Time, and I started going to treatment in my teenage years, and when at that point in my life, I was thinking that, everyone else was crazy and I was fine, like, you want me to stay sober after I leave treatment? Oh, well, yeah, that's not going to happen. I would use it as sort of an opportunity to start feeling better and get well and go back out and do what I was doing all along. So it was a long road for me to rewire my brain for recovery, and it takes a long time for some people, and other people it's like, oh my God, I'm first time's the charm. you can't really predict who's going to bounce back or who's going to embrace recovery right away or who is going to continue to struggle for years or months. It's just, you can't really tell.
Your first book that you had out, High on Arrival, which you were on Oprah with and revealed in the book and on Oprah about your decade-long sexual relationship with your father, and it was a kind of a shocker for everybody. But the revelation, I imagine that was also another part of some healing for you.
Well, I've since learned, because I was schooled immediately by psychologists and doctors, including Dr. Drew and other survivors of incest, that there is no such thing as consent between a parent and a child. And I realize now, with a lot of hindsight, that I was trying to protect my father's memory, and I was taking on a lot of the shame and the guilt that really wasn't mine to carry. Mm-hmm. He had a responsibility to protect his child, not molest his child, you know. And so I bore the brunt of a lot of criticism for the way I characterized what happened. And now that I have had a lot of time and distance from that, I can see things very differently.
Well, besides your pug right now, who else is in your life? I mean, what are you doing day to day in filling in that void that maybe was created from some of these people that you had to empty out?
Well, day to day, I work full time as a drug and alcohol counselor at a treatment center in Los Angeles called Breathe Life Healing Centers. So that's pretty awesome. I have my 30-year-old son, Shane. I have a great life. I have a lot of really good friends. I've been in the same house for 16 years. I love what I do. I get to write books. I get to go on a book tour. I did a guest starring on the Netflix version of One Day at a Time recently with my old friend Norman Lear. Yeah, life is pretty good. I really have nothing to complain about.
Well, that's awesome. It's awesome to hear that and to, hear somebody that was able to get through what a challenging early stage in life and into midlife there to be where you are today, to be able to enjoy what's happening. And the book, as you said, will help other people, even if it's just for some entertainment value. It's called, again, Hopeful Healing, Essays on Managing, Recovering, and Surviving Addiction. Will there be a third book coming out?
You never know. Give me a minute. This book just came out on February 7th. I imagine there'll be a third book, but, give me a minute.
Do I sound like your publisher? When's the next one coming out, Mackenzie?
Right, exactly.
Thank you very, very much for joining us on the program this morning. Have your